So I was recently asked how I make my cool, sick outro videos like this. And they were wondering like if this is all done, like if I'm animating all this. And it's actually pretty simple. So I'm just going to cut to the conclusion here real quick in the beginning of the video. So basically it's a model I made. And in Gmod, what I did is I attached a rope to it and a thruster. And I'll just demonstrate real quick. And, you know, you can get it to spin around pretty easily. Now, it's a little bit more complicated than that, and I'm going to go through the entire process from start to finish on how I would make a cool outro video. Step one is to have an idea. Have the idea of what you want to do. For me, I just wanted to say subscribe. That's it. How do you make a 3D model that says subscribe? I don't know. I use 3D Studio Maximum, the superior modeling tool. So to start off, I'm just going to go and get the text spline tool, and I'm going to type out subscribe. And I'm going to choose a cool font. That's very important. You don't want to use a bad font. You want to use a cool font. Certain fonts don't play nicely with 3ds Max for whatever reason, but a lot of them do. And like, see this one, for example, you see the eye here, it has like extra geometry going on. I wouldn't worry too much about any of that. Like, your geometry can be totally just busted and it'll still work. This one, ooh, this is, I could do like a Mr. Thug isolation kind of situation, but the font is really like the most important thing because that kind of like determines what your model is going to look like. I kind of like this one, just straight up italic Windows UI font. Kind of looks kind of good. So then what do you do? Well, it's easy. You extrude this. You extrude it like that much. And then we're going to give it a bit of a chamfer. And as you increase the chamfer, you're going to notice everything's screwed up and horrible because you can't actually just do that. You can't just straight up go from extrude to chamfer because, as you can see, these are all n-gons. These are not like proper models and stuff. So what you got to do first is retopologize this. But before you can retopologize, you need to quadrify the mesh. And this is going to give horrible results, but at least it's like something. It's like kind of sort of better than it was. So after the mesh has been quadrified, now what I'm going to do is you can see there's like messed up bits right here. You don't want this. So clearly the mesh is still busted, but we're going to go ahead and do a pro optimizer on this. Bring it down as much as you can until things don't look messed up at all. You don't want it to be really gross unless you do, because that looks kind of cool. That's kind of a cool effect. But you want just enough geometry where you have hard edges, but everything is kind of like working out. Then I'm going to add a tessellate modifier on this, and I'm going to set the tension to 0. Now I'm going to retopologize this, and this should hopefully maintain the hard edges. And as you can see, it did a pretty good job. It did a pretty good job. Look at that. Look, the B is a little messed up, but that's okay because this is for video. Like, this isn't a game asset. We don't necessarily care that the B is totally busted right here for some unknown reason. Is the other B like that? No, the other B's fine. So you could go and fix that up, or we could clone this, just make a backup copy because, you know, you don't want to lose your modifier stack. You know, collapse this. And I'm just going to physically move the B over to the other B. And I'm going to delete that B. And that's, there you go, problem solved. Now, like I did earlier, now we can do the chamfer. And this is going to make everything look nice and good, maybe. You can see the B's messed up. So the B is totally busted, not good. And like I said earlier, certain fonts don't like to work. Well, this is what happens. So some fonts are totally fine, but other ones, for whatever reason, you'll get weirdness like this. And the problem is, you can see right here, there's a situation going on. So pretty much what you do to fix this is you select everything and you weld it slightly. Don't be afraid to go a little bit higher than, you know, than what you think is necessary. A little bit of weld, make sure that number goes down, get it all welded up. That's probably fixed, hopefully, maybe. Throw that chamfer back on there, and now you can see where stuff is still broken. So now we got a problem right here. And geometry-wise, I would say that's not even like a broken area. So you can see in hidden line mode, that's happening because the chamfer is too big, and so it's like intersecting over this. So just make it a little smaller. When you go back, look, you can see no more problem. No more problem. Easy. The main thing is that you don't want this quad right here to be concave. You want it to be just ever so slightly convex. So like this, that's convex. Perfectly fine. And make sure that, you're not getting any weirdness anywhere else. You might have situations like this where it's chamfering random edges. It doesn't really matter. And I'm just going to collapse this and go ahead and say, that's cool. That's basically done. So the model itself is done. Now we get to the fun part, which is UV unwrapping. And UV unwrapping is a pain in the ass and nobody likes to do it because it's horrible. So I'm just going to throw a UVW map on this and I'm going to use like a shrink wrap. And right now it doesn't look like anything, but when I open up the material browser, so you can do anything for the texture. You saw earlier, you can kind of see it says Shy Studios. It's a sick texture, but this time I'm gonna grab a random tiling texture that I have and apply it to the object and see we got something going on here. You can change how it looks with this, blah, blah, blah. That's cool. And you can definitely get some cool effects with this, but you might not like that. I'm actually going to unwrap this and you'll see why in a second. It's not that difficult to unwrap this kind of thing. So I'm just gonna hit the by angle button, but what I wanna do is I just want the front to all be like one thing, and the back of course too. And now I can just flatten by smoothing group and then not really give a crap at all because I want kind of everything to be together, sort of. There are weird like planes just kind of hanging out over here like that don't make no sense. Well, that's easy to fix. I'm just gonna collapse this and I'm going to once again weld everything, and that should fix some of these weird situations like that right there. Now I have a slightly less weird situation, and I'm just gonna go ahead and do this. I don't give a crap about UV optimization because again, this is for a video. This is, I can use like an 8K texture if I really need to. I don't care. It's not a game asset. So I'm going to export this as an FBX and I'm going to bring it into Substance Painter. So let me just get this over here and I'm going to go ahead and add a like neon green fill layer, like green screen green. But then I'm going to add a white fill layer, but this one, I'm going to throw a black mask on here, a generator, and a UV border. Crank the contrast on this and turn the balance down just so I can get this outline situation going on. And you can see it's not perfect. That's fine. I'm going to fix that shortly. I just want these nice outlines. That looks pretty good. Okay, so now I'm just going to throw this in a folder, and on the folder, I'm going to throw a black mask, and then on this, I'm just going to use the polygonal fill tool, and I'm just going to select only those top bits, and boom, now I don't have any of that white on the sides. I just have it on the top, and that's all I want to do. I'm only exporting the color texture, and as you can see, here is the cool texture. Awesome. It's pretty trivial to do this in other software. Like you could just kind of bake a curvature map in 3ds Max, but I just think it's a lot faster to do it in Substance. Okay, cool. So now I have my texture in Max. Very cool. I'm going to give this a name, Subscribe Green, and I'm going to throw this in the Young VTF edit. And there's my cool texture. I'm just going to throw it in here. We're going to call it Subscribe Green. And I'm going to create a VMT for this. And I'm going to make it unlit because I don't want any weird lighting to affect this. I just want the solid color. And if you're really crazy, you could save this uncompressed for Gmod. You don't have to use DXT compression, and that's going to make your colors more accurate, and it's just going to look better. But I don't need to do that. I'm just going to name the model the same thing as the material. Make sure you save your 3ds Max project as well. Now this is kind of where you can go crazy because, again, our final result is for Gmod, but you can do crazy stuff in Max. Like you could animate the letters, very complexly in Max and then export that animation to Gmod. For example, you could make all of the individual letters spin around. That'd be cool to do. I'm just going to export this as it is, but we need a collision mesh first. So I'm just going to create a box around the whole thing. About that big. Yeah, there we go. Cool. So that's the collision mesh. And in wall worm, gonna grab this static prop. You do want to pick one of these because this kind of determines the mass. So I'm gonna go ahead and make it like some kind of metal. Get your paths set up. Grab that box you just made. Set it to auto mass. Oh, and for scale, well, I just know intuitively that this is about the size that I want it to be, but you can just make a box. And you can see it's about 12 feet long. And that's going to be technically smaller in Gmod because of the whole unit conversion situation. But the way that Wallworm and Max is set up by default is like 1 max unit equals 1 inch. So like, let's say you wanted to model something real world scale. First, you would have to take that real measurement, convert that to hammer units, which are going to be 0.75 of an inch for every 1 inch. And then take that number of units and then put it in inches. Alternatively, you could just go up to customize and unit setup and set your setup to be 1 unit equals 0.75 inches, and that will then make it so that then you can just insert the actual real world measurement, and when you export, it will be the correct size. There's trade-offs for doing it both ways. Usually I don't care. I'm not actually working in feet inches when I'm doing modeling related things. I'm just kind of working to scale, so I just keep it default. But for now, we're done. We can just go ahead and export the QC plus model. So you're going to want to relaunch Gmod now because the model will not show up automatically when you compile it. And I just use Construct for this, but you could use, a custom map. It doesn't really matter. Go down to the Shy Studios folder and you can see my sick new model. And that is looking good. That's looking cool. You're going to want to get movement, okay? So one thing with GM Construct is you can't just rope tool this to this wall. So if I use the rope tool on this and point it at the ceiling, nothing happens. You can't select the ceiling in this area. So what you got to do, just grab the PHX panel, kind of put it above it. Then you can rope to that. As you can see, it's hanging nicely. Maybe add a second rope. And you can do a lot of different stuff here. Like depending on how you want it to move, you can constrain it in different ways. So maybe don't even use a rope, and maybe use a wheel if you just want it to spin, or like a ball socket, or elastic. Elastic is usually pretty good, and that's kind of what I use. See, we got this nice bounciness to it, and it's just hanging there. So I'm going to put this up higher so it can bounce more. I'm going to make this invisible, and I'll put a thruster on here. No effect. No sound, but a little bit of force. And once again, make it invisible. And now, when I hit 0, it starts to spin. And it probably needs a little bit more power than that. So let me go ahead and throw another thruster on this side, and I'll give it a lot more force this time. That's pretty cool. Yeah, that looks cool. Okay, so the next situation is obviously you don't want those shadows to appear in your cool video. So you can turn those off with the little command r_shadows 0. And that's going to disable all dynamic shadows, including flashlights and projected textures. So be careful if you want those two features. But now I'm going to set this world that I'm in to be pitch black. And I'm going to pull the camera out and get a kind of a zoom in going, and I'm going to just start going crazy. I'm going to start going crazy with this. And this is going to be my outro. And you can see it's got a very interesting way of moving. And depending on how you constrain it and how, elastic your elastic is or how your rope is set up, you can get different kinds of movement, just pressing your thruster back and forth. You can get all sorts of different motion. This is the fun part. So now I'm going to actually make the outro. And to do that, I have to first edit the video that you're currently watching in order to get this final bit. Now you can see, maybe you can see, but there's a tiny sliver of my desktop. And sometimes I forget to get rid of that, and it has unforeseen consequences. So I just like to zoom in just a tiny little bit. And now I have this nice 60 FPS, very cool, very epic outro. And the reason I did it like this is to demonstrate two things you can do. So first of all, you can composite this using an add mode. And what that will do, I need something underneath it. So I'm just going to throw this random texture under here. So you can see the stuff that's black is transparent now, but the stuff that's white is fully opaque, and the stuff that's green is kind of, sort of not there. But that's okay, because the next thing you can do is make the stuff that's green disappear as well. And to do that, you have to go and actually do this for real. I'm going to throw the chroma keyer in here. There's probably a better way of doing this in Resolve. I don't know. This software is not the most intuitive. I'm just going to adjust this until I get rid of most of the green. Now you will see that the only thing that's left is my cool white bits. And I can adjust this further to maintain those white bits. You can see there's a little bit of green left. That's okay, because then I can go in after this and desaturate to get rid of that any remaining green that might be there in this. So now you can do some interesting things. So let's say I turn off addition and I just use this. So now you can see as this flies around, I have a cool static texture, and you can do all sorts of stuff with this. So what I do is I go and find a crazy video, just something ridiculous. Usually it's just some anime BS like this, maybe like this. Yeah, well, I'll use this one. This one looks cool. So I throw this in here, unlink this. I don't care about the audio. Oh, I do not like Resolve. I'm just gonna zoom this, position it somewhere around here, and now I'm just gonna start throwing a million different effects on this. So I like edge detect, maybe throw a blur on there, JPEG damage, that one's always fun. But it's lacking color, unfortunately. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and bring some of that color back with the edge detect. I'm going to duplicate this on here, and I'm just going to turn off this stuff. But then I'm going to set the above one. I'm going to set this to just a goofy, something crazy, ridiculous. Now this is not exactly what I'm going for. Here, this is pretty cool. I kind of like this. And then what I'm going to do this, duplicate it down, add, and then add a blur to this one. Beyond this one, I'm going to do some kind of craziness with the colors. And I like to do all kinds of craziness with the colors. Yeah, this looks good. This is what I like. This is pretty much perfect. It's just missing one more thing, so I'm just going to go ahead and compound clip this again, which is the equivalent of nesting in Premiere. And, maybe blur this. Do something crazy like this. Yeah, now this is looking now like a Shy Studios video outro, minus one thing it's missing, and that is invert the color of this one. And then I'm going to physically mirror it this direction and this direction. And I'm going to set this one on top to add. Okay, now, I don't know why there's total pure blackness sometimes, but when you let go of your mouse, you can see it is generated fine. Okay, so now I'm going to compound clip this one more time, and I'm going to blur this there. And now that is pretty cool, but it's still gross. So I'm going to go into the color correction. I'm going to mess with the colors. I'm going to give it a, I'm going to kind of just try to shift it over to be less rainbowy. So like this, do something like this. That looks kind of cool. And this one, I'm just going to bring the saturation down a little bit. Maybe change the hue up to be something a little bit more pleasing that doesn't look like a Hot Wheels or Nerf. What are we feeling? That's the real question. Shy Studios colors, blue and red. I kind of like this. That's kind of cool looking. And I'm sure that will look cool throughout the rest of it. Yeah, so now we have prime, goofed up video. Very cool. So now you put it behind this. Because we're keying out the green, we have this goofed up video, which is not going to render real time, but we can go deeper. we can go so deeper. Let me just duplicate this, compound clip this again. So now we have this crazy, insane video, and we can layer this on top of another video. It doesn't even have to be this one. It could be anything, but I'm just going to do this one temporarily. I'll throw this in additive mode, and then on this one, I'm going to just disable some stuff. Maybe I'll flip it just to give it some difference. Maybe I'll blur it like crazy. And then in color, because I don't want to mess with that, I just want to mess with this. So the problem here is I would need to render this in place to kind of mess with it, or I could create a new compound clip of this. We can get more ridiculous. This isn't ridiculous enough, and you can't even see that it says subscribe most of the time. So we have to go further. We have to go crazy, and I actually did something stupid. So the way you fix this is we need to get into the compound clip. Number 4, open in timeline. Okay, so now I'm going to copy that original thing. I'm going to paste it here, so that way I can put this on another layer above it, okay? Now I want like an effect. I want like a glow. We can really crank the glow on this. Okay, so now I'm just gonna go ahead and composite this one again on top of what we already had. But this time, check it out. Look at how cool this is. This is sick nasty. So what I would do is I'd render this out, and then I'd composite it on top of another like goofy anime video that I've like, you know, edited and stuff. And another thing that I'd like to do, actually, I'm going to throw these up one, duplicate this down, this one. I'm just going to put on add, get rid of all this bullshit. I just want to crank the gain on this one. So this bottom, this base layer really makes a big difference. And this is kind of what I want. Yeah, like this. That's what I want to bring out. I want to make it so it's more glowy. Yeah, it's more solid. So then I'm going to pull another one of these out. I'm going to select all of this, compound clip this again, and now this, I'm going to use this by inverting it and changing this. I'm just going to crank the colors just so it's like pure black and pure white pretty much. So my goal here is to get rid of, you see how the inner bits aren't kind of showing up very well? Well, that's what I'm doing here with this. Cool, great. So compound clip this again. Okay, deliver. Gonna go ahead and export this as a ProRes file. Make sure your vocoder is not broken because it likes to change your settings for some reason. Okay, audio doesn't need audio. Add that to render queue and then hope that it can render this. Now this might take a long time because it's very nested, but it seems like it's doing a pretty good job. I mean, you know, 3 minutes remaining. It's only like a minute clip. So now, you know what we do. We bring in the thing we just rendered, make a new timeline, and now we can watch it in 60 FPS for reals, and look how cool it is. But now, we got that black I don't want that black background. Obviously, we go and just throw some other crap underneath it. Yeah, that's cool. And then what I'm going to do is duplicate this up once. I'm going to do a key. I'm going to do a Luma key on this, the black. And it'll have this on top. Now, this is a little bit too, you can kind of see that it's too anime. So I'm just going to blur it. Just going to blur it quite a bit. There, that looks pretty cool. One last thing, though. One last thing. I need to go back into one of these things. Let me grab this. Bring this up over here. Okay, so this. So now I have this on top. And basically what I want to do is I just want to have the white. So I'm going to use some obscure curves to just completely get rid of anything that isn't white. And then I'm going to throw another Luma key on here. Just grab that. That looks pretty good. So I don't want that black. I just want the white outlines. So I guess what I could do is just add on that, but I don't want the add. I like having something there. So let me put it on normal. And what I'm going to do, color, I'm just going to throw another corrector in here. And that's a good color. And now you can actually see that it says subscribe. Now, am I satisfied with this? Not necessarily. It's not exactly what I wanted to do. I kind of just wanted to have like glowing edges around the white bits. But I did it like this to demonstrate in the video that you can make your initial footage, you know, be, if you make your model itself be a key color that you can get rid of, you can do some like crazy stuff with it, and vice versa. And also, if you make, you know, your background like pure black, you can do additive. The way I did the one in the previous videos, it actually is just on a green screen. So all I'm doing is keying out the background. I'm not doing anything crazy like that. And that can be a lot easier if you just want like a texture. So like I showed in the beginning, you saw that the model there, it was a textured model with like intricate details on it. So it's probably better to record that on a green background and then key that out to preserve the details than it would be to use additive blending and getting rid of the background that way, or just by keying out black, because you don't want to key out black normally unless you're doing something like this. But I'd say this is kind of cool, although I kind of want to change the color up a bit now because I don't like the way it's looking. New compound clip. Now you can throw more crap on it. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I don't like the colors though, so I'm going to change the temperature to something else. I'm thinking that, although I don't like those reds. I'm going to grab just those orangey reds right here, and I'm going to crank those up. Shy Studios red, and I don't care about the matte. It'll look cooler if it's messed up. Yeah, I'm thinking that's an outro video. I'm thinking that's the outro video right there. Then you just put some sick music on it, and then maybe play it like 2x speed, and you're done. You are basically done. So once again, deliver. Render it, boy! And that's it. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm hopefully going to cut this up to be a very short, sweet video, because let me tell you, I've been recording for 2 hours. The key takeaway here is experiment and use multiple tools. Like, my previous intros didn't make it in Resolve. I did it all in Premiere. But you can just go crazy, just experiment. That's what I'm doing here, and you'll get a pretty cool result like this. Just throw a bunch of stuff together until you get a cool result. And of course, I will end this video with the outro. Make sure you subscribe, make sure you press the like button, and make sure you become a channel member. And I'll be back next week with a brand new video.